So much quarterback play. And, I've always said this is that there is normally different styles of quarterback play, but the game itself has not changed. And that's where we really tap up and into it. So joining us here live and discussing more about the recent quarterback play, who knows a thing or two about it, X's and O's, experiences and instincts, former collegiate quarterback David Pindell is going to be joining us here on the I feel like this year, David, it's special because we are seeing a lot of quarterback play, but it's not particularly the ones that are lighting up box scores as much. They're not like, a usual 3 tutties and no picks type deal, even though those are on occasions. I think a lot of it is we're getting down to the nitty gritty. There's more, trench warfare in the run game. And then not to mention, even when the pocket collapses, you got to make the throws. You got to put the ball in your hands. What have you made about, as we're getting close to the end of this NFL season, what you've noticed as far as changing quarterback play? Like the styles are different, but the actual instinctive game itself, I think, has not changed.
Yeah, so, football is an evolving sport, from the 2000s, from the 90s to the 2000s to where we are today. The, style of quarterback has changed the way people, the things quarterbacks can do, from, the stature quarterback, pocket passing to, just running quarterbacks to dudes who can do both. But like you said, at the end of the day, the way to play quarterback hasn't changed. Being able to be instinctual, make plays, outside the pocket and, make the throws on third down and be able to take those hits. Those things haven't changed. And in today's NFL, watching it, a lot of the guys who are used to, just always making plays and stuff. Some, are not making plays how, they expected, people expect them to be how they've been over their career. And then the new guys, are stepping up. One guy that stands out a lot is Drake May. Bryce Young. What he's doing down there in Carolina and what he's doing up in New England, those two guys, I've been watching a lot this year that, have been, showing like they impressed me a lot more than, what I expected over, ever since their draft process. I'm always, I've been a Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers guy since I've been watching football. But, hey, Aaron Rodgers still, I think he's the 4th seed. He's in that situation with the Steelers that, hey, all he's got to do is, get the job done. He's not the quarterback he was in Green Bay, where it's like he's got to do everything. But Pittsburgh, he's been getting the job done, sort of. Lamar and the Ravens is after his injury, it's just like a iffy. This last game, versus the Bengals, they had a pretty solid game, but that's one of the guys, you expect to throw three touchdowns, no picks, have one of those type of games, and then a lot of other quarterbacks have been, having some, different style of play. One guy I also like is Sam Darnold. I liked him coming out of college. Sam Darnold coming out of college, I always knew, because the way I view quarterbacks and how I, scout him and stuff is like, I look at, it's a lot of small things as a quarterback, you understand it. It's just Sam Darnold got that. He got that it factor. And when he went to Carolina, the Jets, people, it's like they didn't really, give him a chance. They didn't really, believe in him. But I just always thought, Sam Darnold was a good quarterback. And last year with the Vikings, he proved it. And right now he's showing what he can do with Seattle. Seattle got a real good defense, and then you got him as a quarterback. And the receiver, the receiver was a playmaker for him. I just think, it's a lot of, the quarterback bar is not like you got the top 5 that are here and then worse here. It's like each week is up and down. Matthew Stafford's still up there, doing what he does, make plays when it matter, and he's always got his team in championship competing situation. So it's a lot of quarterback play going on, and at the end of the day, like I said, style of play changed, but at the end of the day, being able to be instinctual and put your team in one position has not changed.
It's interesting. I was watching this yesterday over the weekend, and I mean, I get a chance to see these two bout, every single year in the same division. And, Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert, I mean, you signed me up for that for 15 years. I mean, we're going to get two giants going at it. And, I felt like, this hasn't been the same season for Kansas City, unfortunately. It felt a lot like the O-line play has changed, and you don't have your top tier O-linemen like as what they have in the past. I mean, Creed Humphrey is still up there, but it seems like it's almost like an open door that is just slowly closing up, and you ask yourself how much of that closing becomes pressurizing until you really have to do something about that. So starting with Patrick Mahomes, we know him dealing with pressures and dealing with quarterback hurries and hits. It seems like there's got to be a lot of change-ups. We know that the roster changes need to be made for Kansas City. I mean, Kelsey's getting up there in age. There's a couple guys that we know are kind of, they got too much too much wear and tear on the tires. What do you think of Kansas City's situation? Listen, I don't wish this on anybody, but a torn ACL to end with only 3 games left in the season, that is hard. And I wish
Exactly.
we'd been able to finish where everything had started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Kansas, I think their situation is like you said, nobody wants their starting quarterback to go down with an ACL injury at that. And yeah, they've just not had the season that they're used to. You expect them to be the juggernaut, and just how they've been in the past, just running through teams, and one way or another, you just always, no matter if they win lose a game or two, it's like Kansas City's going to be in the playoffs or in that that AFC Championship. But this year is just like you said, the offensive line play hasn't been the best. Playmakers, Patrick Mahomes, his play himself hasn't been where you expect it to be. So, I just think they might, in that situation, personally, from my perspective looking in, I think they just, they need to just start looking for new guys. They got the young receiver, but yeah, you just need to start adding help. Get from the offensive line, that's where it starts at, because you got to protect the quarterback. And as you see, the quarterback went down. I'm not sure it's necessarily the offensive line fault how he went down, how he got injured, how he tore it. I think it was like on
Yeah.
the sideline.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, still, you don't even want your quarterback having to get out the pocket like that as much. So you start right there, start with the interior, and you work from there. You be in that rebuilding situation, because a team like Kansas City, who's been a juggernaut, who went from a juggernaut team to what are they now? I think like 6-5. It's like,
Yep.
okay, I think you gotta start bringing new guys in, bring fresh guys in, like you said, because tight end, he's getting up there in age. And the defense, I don't know too much about. I haven't watched too much of their defense, but I'm sure they always had a solid defense, but they could use some help on the defense side of the ball. Getting some new guys in there, and just working on building that fresh start again. Start rebuilding that juggernaut, that kingdom that they used to have, and go from there. That's, in my opinion, that's what I think Kansas needs to do if I was that organization.
And they've had such a great running for the last 8-9 years, and I
Ever
feel
since
like
Patrick Mahomes
time.
came in the league, yep.
Yeah, and it's like they built together a great culture. And over time, I think of the GMs, like it's really hard to draft at the bottom every single year because you're that successful that eventually it starts to catch up to you. So yeah, I think someone's got to kind of change up. Maybe so a couple of moves in the offseason could really do them some great shape. On the other side, I've loved with this entire culture change in Los Angeles. And we know it's not sexy to some people when it comes to, Jim Harbaugh's quirkiness with the Chargers, but it works. And Justin Herbert, we've evaluated this guy for all 6 years. I mean, the guy is mechanically great when throwing the ball. He can throw like right on the needle at the dime to a receiver's hands, and all you hope for, just catch the ball and protect it. And so when I think of his quarterback play, and he gets so much of just this bash, which I think is just unnecessary in my opinion, because it's like, look, he's dealing with an O-line that he had 70% pressure against the Eagles, and then comes into a division rival matchup where that's not easy to sweep an opponent who went to a Super Bowl. So when I think about this, am I seeing a different level of Justin Herbert here that I think we are finally getting a chance to see scratch the surface, that I think it doesn't make sense to some people, but even in your opinion as a former quarterback, it may make sense to you because these are the challenges you go through as a leader in the locker room, as the vocalist when you get in the huddle and you're getting ready to get that ball and then distribute it. What do you make of this? Because I think there's not a lot of people talking about this, how he has an explosive winning record whenever he doesn't have a line that's that elite in front of him.
Yeah, so I just think he's just doing what he did in college. When he was at Oregon, he was the playmaker. He was the guy to, make the plays, always have the pinpoint accuracy, and then he leads his team to victory. So what he's doing now, I think it also comes with experience and age. He's been in the league what 5 6 years,
Mm-hmm.
and since he's been in the league, he's been making jumps each year. Improving, showing like they have the potential to be a good team, be in a good organization. And from my own experience as a quarterback, when you're in a program and around somebody, organization for quite some years, 3 4 years, it's like you guys start to gel with each other. You kind of understand how you guys think, what's good with you guys, how you guys can become a better offense moving forward. So I think with him, this year is just showing that okay, I got control of everything. I know what to do because he just plays he plays pretty calm in my opinion. The way he plays calm, and like you said, in the big matchups, the big games, those are the games that he take that extra step, and that's what makes quarterbacks great. So I just think, in my opinion, the biggest thing is being in a system for a while, being around the same coaches and stuff, and being able to just keep building that chemistry each year, build that confidence. When you got confidence and you know what to do, it's just like the game could be fast. You can have the best athletes on the field and stuff, but when you know what to do, everything is just like the matrix. It just slows down. So that's how, in my opinion, how I think Justin Herbert has been growing and improving each year since he's been in the league.
Absolutely agree. It's interesting. Another quarterback that I think we just think is just that physically gifted and just what he does. I mean, Josh Allen. I look at Buffalo and I watched a couple of these last couple of weeks, and there's parts of me where I want to invest so much in Buffalo, but there's times where I start looking at why in the first half does it feel like this offense got stagnant, and then the second half, oh, they're obliterating everything in their place. Like it,
Mm.
and to me, honestly, when it came to that snow game against Cincinnati,
Yeah,
if it wasn't for Burrow having a pick six and then an interception, I think Cincinnati would have ran away with that. But
exactly. I
because
agree.
the defense stepped up, and then it allowed Josh Allen, where that run that he made for the touchdown was like, I'm putting the matters in my own hands, and I'm getting
Hmm.
in there and I'm getting to the end zone. So we're probably not going to have potentially, and we'll see what happens with Baltimore, but we might not have a playoff without Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and Patrick Mahomes. Does this feel like with Josh Allen, he's got to now be that guy to take matters into his own hands like he normally does here in Buffalo?
Yeah, exactly. This year, I think, like you said, this is the first year since I think they all been in the league. Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, and Lamar Jackson potentially could not be in the playoffs, and it's like only teams left in that AFC that could potentially take it or be in that championship. Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, and I don't know who else. I don't know how the Colts are playing or whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, those two. This could be like that. Josh Allen. This is like the chance for him to It's like people expect you to take that jump because like
Right.
AFC wise, I think Josh Allen at first coming in. I didn't think Josh Allen was. I didn't watch him too much, but then over the years, he just proved to me like okay, he makes plays. He's a quarterback, and then when the game's on the line, it's like he just like he's another Justin Herbert. He takes that extra step and putting his team in. He turns to like he turns into a gauntlet the way he plays.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I just think he has potential. He got the playmakers around him. They the conference they in, they're going against who? Buffalo,
Mm-hmm.
is Miami, the Jets, and the Patriots.
Yep. The Patriots.
So
Yep.
Patriots the only team, with the way Drake Make's playing. But I still think in those big games, those big competition, Josh Allen's the type of guy that can, he's scary. He's not the type of guy that's like, oh, when the game comes along, he folds. He's the type of guy that's like you might want to worry about him when the game's on the line. So I think he could be they could have the potential to, if they play right, like you said, they start coming out slow and then get into the game fast, in the playoffs, everybody changes. Everything starts over. It's all fresh. The regular season, it's like, hey, we look at what you did the first week, second week, third. But in the playoffs, it's a whole new team. Everybody levels up. So you can't come in the game, starting off slow and then expecting halftime, come out and then, just try to, come out and play Josh Allen football. It's like you gotta start from the beginning. You gotta punch them off early, and you gotta show that offense. You gotta air it out, use your run game. You got a great running back, and you gotta just put your foot on them from the beginning to the jump because playoffs, everybody comes with their A game and the level of play. I think it just ramps up a notch.
Two fiery questions for you because I totally agree, and I think you'll love this last question up here for you. But this one here, so formerly playing up in college, we just witnessed Fernando Mendoza win the Heisman Trophy up in Indiana, and I think they have done tremendously well with the new coach of Kurt Signetti and him bringing in the energy and vibe that kind of feels a little Nick Saban-esque in a way, but he can definitely talk. And Fernando Mendoza, what's crazy to me is that we have now had 4 consecutive Heisman Trophy winners that were transfers, which is kind of something to really think about. You come up from, NorCal up in Cal Berkeley to come into a system at Indiana, and you're just already taking it by the reins. I was so wrong about Indiana when I started the season because I wasn't sure what they were going to do without Curtis Rourke. And then all of a sudden he comes in, and it's like, I got no worry in the world. Kurt Signetti's already put together a great system, and then to go toe-to-toe like they did against Ohio State was just the icing on the cake that just made it well worthwhile. What do you make of Fernando Mendoza? Because I think with his draft stock and what he's coming into this upcoming year is there's going to be some teams that are desperate for quarterbacks out there, and I think this is well worth the look as far as, draft compatibility and just, their landing spot in their organizations.
Yeah, I think, what they're doing in Indiana, what he's doing there is shocking to everybody. Like, I don't think anybody ever had Indiana on their radar, top 15, top 20, let alone in top 10, coming into the season, doing the preseason ranking. But, he surprised everybody from the beginning to the end. I don't know too much about him. I didn't watch too much about it. I just started watching him and hearing about him towards the end of the season because when Indiana just started popping, everybody, seeing Indiana jump up the ranks, that's when I kind of started, kind of watching them a little bit. I watched them versus Maryland, and I think I watched them versus I think it was the Penn State game where it came down to the last second with the last touchdown like that. And that's when I looked, like, especially the Maryland game. The Maryland game, I think he threw a pick or two. And Maryland was up at one point, and then he just started coming back. The way he started playing, he just played very calm. I think he took things from like 10-yard line. He did like quarterback draw up the middle. And he just looked so calm, and that's when the game was like at the peak. I think it was the last couple minutes where the game was close, and he just looked so calm. And then I just started watching him a lot. Started watching a little bit more toward the end of the season and started hearing about him. And I was like, okay, this guy's a playmaker. I started learning a little bit about him, look him up a little bit, watch some of his film, and yeah, I think he's doing a tremendous job, and with his draft stock coming up this year, the way he's been playing, he's a lot of people are going to be in the range for a quarterback in the first round. I agree.
Love it, man. So a final question for you before letting you go, because this is interesting, and I was actually going to be planning to purchase a book from Amazon that discusses a lot of X's and O's, but at the same time breaks down a lot of like what goes on in the offensive plays. When I think of quarterback stature, just by themselves, I'm thinking of a lot of things. Number one, how do you lead by example? Another thing is, how do you control when there are times where you don't feel you're in control, especially when the pressure gets hot? The other thing is what's the motive and the belief, especially when you're coming into a system and with a coach, because you got to develop that relationship very quickly, and then along with your players. From you having the experience from the collegiate level, the NFL, and then the XFL and the UFL, like we've talked about when we started, in the program, is stylistically they look different, but the game itself from just the stature hasn't changed. Because to me, there's mobile quarterbacks that know how to run, know how to scramble, know how to do all those things. Then there's the pocket passer who just has the rocket arm, can be precise with it, even when pressure's in their face. When you think about your career, David, and when you look at, especially when we're breaking down quarterbacks, because I love doing this all the time, and I get a lot of crap being here in Denver because people think I'm hating on Bo Nix. No, I'm not. I said he's a franchise quarterback. It's just there are times where I feel like as a second-year quarterback, where's the stretch of the field? Where's the urgency? Where's a lot of that stuff where you need it? So when I think about that with quarterback, and you may have a different point of view than I do, but for the explanation's sake for our audiences, what all that tails into, because with the level of your experience of your kind is, it's just when we think of quarterbacks, there's other things that we think we know, and then there's some of the things that we don't even pay attention to that is important when you describe the position.
Yeah. So when I describe the position, um, for one, like you said, it starts with leadership. Your quarterback is off the field anyway. It's not just on the field. I think it starts off the field. Your quarterback is the guy you want to put it like this. If you have a team, it's the guy that, he's the role model for the team. He represents the team. He represents what you guys stand for. And he's the guy that, everybody looks up to. So if he's the type of guy that, he's always on time. He shows up. He does his work. It's about his business. He's not into all the extra outside noise stuff. He's all about his business. He's that type of guy. He's the guy that's always on time. He's early. He's dependable. He's a guy that, he's he's just I would say, if the football team is like a family, he's the father of the whole situation. The father, the head hoe. He's the guy in control when everything is, with a lot of chaos. It's like this is the guy, like he's going to take us to the promised land. He's going to make sure everybody's, safe and we don't have nothing to worry about. So that's how I like to look at it from that perspective. That's the starting point from that. But then on top of that, you see what type of mindset this guy is. How is he, when he doesn't have any control, like you said. Because at the end of the day, as a quarterback and coach, you got to be able to trust each other, especially in those situations when you have some adversities going on. And you got to trust your coach to make the right play call, and you got to trust your quarterback to execute it right. In those situations where you can't control the play call and stuff, you got to be able to you still got to motivate all the guys around to just trust them to hey, coach is going to make the right play call and I'm going to execute to the best of my ability. Even if I don't agree with the play call, you just got to trust them in those situations because, some quarterbacks can get in those situations, doesn't go their way, they get their head down, they start moping and stuff, get emotional and stuff. And then all the teammates see that. And then, it's, it spreads throughout the team and stuff. So you got to be mentally strong. You got to be a leader on and off the field. And then at the end of the day, the biggest thing, you got to be able to play ball. You got to be able to make plays. You got to be that playmaker. Quarterbacks that have evolved the way they play, I think the typical quarterback nowadays, if you think talking college football recruiting, got to be mobile. Got to be mobile. Got to be able to throw the ball outside the pocket, throw it inside the pocket. And yeah, you gotta have that it factor. There's a lot of college football players that are just playmakers now. A lot of playmakers, they find themselves in the last 2-3 minutes of the game, coming down to that last seconds, to that last play of the game. So I think those three things are the most important things, when you look from a quarterback from just, the base, what type of guy is he? Is he a leader? Because people just think, you gotta be a leader on the field. No, you gotta be a leader. It starts outside the field, in the classroom with your family, in the community, all that stuff. You gotta be a down to earth guy that everybody, talks highly of. Mental, you gotta be mentally prepared for, everything that's thrown at you because you're gonna get a playbook. You got a lot of noise. You got the media and stuff. You gotta be able to take all that stuff after you win a game. You gotta be able to take all that stuff after you lose a game, and you still gotta be able to, move on the next day and get prepared for the next game week. So I think, from perspective of, just a typical quarterback and, who you're looking for as your guy, those three things right there, mental, off the field, how is he? And then you just got to be able to play ball. You got to be a playmaker because, hey, at the end of the day, we bring you in to, win us games.
Absolutely. I love every bit of you explaining that and listen, I've even tuned in to like your quarterback school and I absolutely love how you break a lot of that down, man. And I think that especially for a lot of these up and comers like high schoolers that get ready to college and then eventually they go up and into pro or wherever that their futures take them, all that stuff is just so important. And I don't think we realize what truthfully goes in until we're internally in the mind and in the eyes of what a quarterback can do, they can see, and how that they're able to perform when either things go their way or they don't. It's just how you manage to, overcome adversity. So that's amazing, man. I loved every bit of that. David, appreciate you for taking the time, my man. Everybody's going to absolutely love it. And hopefully this is clarity for when we talk about with quarterback play, that this is the kind of stuff that we talk about is like that kind of stuff. And so hopefully everybody enjoyed it here up and onto this interview. Appreciate you for coming on by. Happy holidays to you and your family, man. Enjoy the time. I know you're up and out there in the sunny side, man. It's bright up out there. You got some sun and, enjoy it, man, because it's a lot of fun out there.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you for having me once again. You have a great holiday to you and your family as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, my man.
Yep.
There you go.